Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Matthew with Waddy's channel. Today we are on the final episode. Finally. Final episode of round one of the My Favorite LJN tournament. First round, 40th episode. My God. I knew this was going to be a crazy freaking long tournament. But man, I've said it before, we're looking at close to 80 episodes to complete this tournament. And we're not doing this again. we could definitely do this, My Favorite LJN tournament, year 4, year 5, year 6, but we're not doing a complete tournament the way that we're doing it this time. We're going to break it down. In the future, any new figures I get in, we'll include those. We'll also include some of my all-time favorite figures in that tournament. Figures that I feel have a good chance of winning. Some of figures that have won in past. So things like that, we'll include those figures. But your bona fide figures that have no chance of winning. Your Jimmy Snukas, your Roddy Pipers, your Cowboy Bob Ortons, your Hercules, stuff like that. Those type of figures will not be included. So that would probably eliminate, with all the different customs and stuff. I mean, just those figures I mentioned, probably 30 figures or close to it. Because I got a ton of customs of Piper. Brutus Beefcake, a great figure, but not something that's going to win this tournament. I mean, throw that figure in there and all of his customs. Yeah. You can really downsize the collection by doing that, by throwing particular characters and their customs, by saying this particular figure ain't gonna win. So not a whole lot to talk about before we get into today's matchup. If my face does look really red today, shoot, man, I spent a couple hours outside today, mowing the grass, and there's a lot of grass and weeds, kind of like carrying over. So when you walk up my front porch and before you enter the front door, it's like going over the bricks of the steps and whatnot. So I had to like really mow over that, pull that out by hand and whatnot. So get the rake out, get the hoe out, and start pulling that stuff out. So I really went all in yard work today. So didn't do the backyard, just focused on the front yard today. My wife, a couple years back, or a few years ago, she cut out the big, huge tree that we used to have in our front yard when we first moved in. I guess a few years back, that big tree died, so she had paid someone to come and cut that out, and she planted her own tree. And that tree, it never really grew, and it always kind of like slanted, right? So she always had like this big long stick that she kind of tied to the tree to kind of balance it, keep it straight up. But the pole always slanted. So instead of being straight up, the tree was always like. So instead of, if you look at the pole, and instead of being straight up, it's like almost touching the ground. Neighbor was bitching to me about it yesterday, so I'm like, okay, you know what? That I never really liked that darn thing there. It's hideous. It's an eyesore. I just never did anything with it because it's my wife's baby. She planted it. I'm pretty sure she was proud of it. So I didn't want to mess with it because that was her work. But she gave me a thumbs up, like, hey, I don't care. I'm like, okay, cool. So cut that out this morning. Dug that up. Got the roots out, so that's taken care of, which is great for me because when I mow, I don't have to sit there and mow around it anymore. All right, so let's dig into today's final round one tournament video. I only have 7 figures left, so the last figure remaining will go up against. The only figure I didn't pull, I'm not going to use one of the spares. I was thinking about going with one of the spare Hogans that I wasn't going to use, but I decided I'm going to use the Sensational Sherry. it's a really bad figure. It's a bad custom job. I wasn't going to include it in this tournament. The Sherry figure, I'll talk about it when I bring up the figure. But whatever figure's left over will go up against Queen Sherry. First matchup will feature Sika as he does battle against Vince McMahon from Mark Hackenberg. Next matchup is going to feature the Berserker. Come on. Stop sticking. Berserker and stop stick. God dang it. That is a good one. That is a fantastic match. Oh, that is so good. Sucks. Berserker versus young Harley Race. Come on, come up. Darn tags are sticking to the bottom of this freaking bowl now. Paul Orndorff with red from Mark Hackenberg will square off against Nickel and Dime, also from Mark Hackenberg. So this is going to be a Mark heavy video. And the last figure, Tito Santana prototype. Ooh, nice. The Tito Santana prototype, that is from Random Treasures. And that is the last figure. So Tito Santana prototype is going to take on Sensational Sherry. And when I get to that figure, I'll obviously talk more about it. But I'm going to pause, get those figures pulled, and we will begin shortly. Alright, so figures pulled. First matchup is going to feature from Random Treasures, Wild Samoans Sika, as he does battle against the one-of-a-kind, one-of-one from Mark Hackenberg, Vince McMahon, and we will start with Vince. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there are other customizers out there who've probably made this particular Vince McMahon figure. Maybe. Now, ever since I've seen this Vince McMahon figure, I know 80s Rev has talked about it. He's mentioned a sort of cigar magazine or something that he's seen this particular figure. But you've kind of seen pictures where Vince McMahon had this figure sitting in like an acrylic case, and it's kind of displayed on his desk. And I'm sure nowadays it's probably locked up in some kind of WWF vault or something, some kind of like vaulted museum or what have you. Now, I don't know who would have presented Vince McMahon, but it is his own personalized LJN figure. Whereas, of course, the Red Jacket LJN in Series 5, the 1988 release, is the Vince McMahon that everyone else received. That was the released figure. But this was the design that was presented to Vince McMahon, his one-of-one. Now, if you ever tried to buy that actual figure, I don't know, shoot. I don't think that is something that someone like Vince McMahon would ever try to sell because, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily nostalgic for action figures, but man, if he did try to sell it, the rarity and the value, you're probably talking millions of dollars. At the very least, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you'd have to be someone way up there financially to be able to afford something like that. So yeah, the custom route really is the only way you're going to get something like this. And from my mindset, yeah, I'm still going to look at it as a sort of one-of-one. Not one-of-one based on the original figure, but based on the custom design, based on that design. I call it one-of-one because of said design. And I specifically asked Mark of, hey man, because he's had other Vince McMahon customs. I'm like, hey, can you ever go out and paint this figure for me? And sure enough, he found the figure, painted them up, and did an absolutely remarkable job. And of course, my bonehead. I mean, I wanted the figure. He got it, and I could not buy the figure right away. And I've talked about it in the past. There are just certain figures, even though I wanted this particular one, and he made the figure. I'm like, what are you waiting for? But it's just another Vince McMahon. I've already got plenty of Vinces, but I wanted this one. So what was the holdup? But eventually, I finally did pull the trigger, and luckily, he still had it available. Now he did have like another Yellow Jacket Vince I really wanted, but eventually I did see that was selling on eBay and had a bid on it. And I'm like, damn, you know what? You snooze, you lose. I I uh, I waited too long, and someone else got a great figure. You know what? They can have a fantastic, fantastic customizer to add to their collection. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of really awesome Vince McMahon figures. Like I don't think you can necessarily do Vince wrong. I still say I like the original Red Jacket Vince, but because it's so different and unique, maybe I like this one better. But you've seen the other Blue Jacket Vince, and I gravitate towards that one a lot. So it's really a toss up. It's really difficult to choose. Now, this one does go against a Sika figure. And a difficult thing between guys like the Wild Samoans and Bushwhackers is because they're mirrors of each other, and I have a hard time a lot of time figure out which one is which. With the Bushwhackers, I kind of look at the guys and I'm like, okay, my assumption is Luke has much brighter brown hair, so I look for the light brown compared to the dark brown, almost black hair, and I consider that to be Butch, and I consider light brown to be Luke. So that's how I decipher the Bushwhackers. When I look at the Wild Samoans, I'm like, okay, I kind of look at it as like a straight line essentially. You know, Sika has right arm up. Moving on to Alpha has right arm up, so A for the right side, and then moving on to S with left arm. So simplicity. I didn't watch Wild Samoans growing up, and I still cannot remember who is the freaking manager. I still think it's Alpha, and I could be wrong, but the whole Anoa'i family, man, they're like probably the most popularized family out there. Guys like Roman Reigns and The Rock and I think Nia Jax, a bunch of others. I mean, obviously that's just Yokozuna. Obviously, probably outside of The Rock. I mean, I think Yokozuna was at one point the most successful member of the family, multiple time heavyweight champion, and followed by a multiple time tag team champion, and that was just out of WWF. I don't know what he did elsewhere, Japan or anything, or in the like little territory areas, but for the longest time, my figures are falling off the shelves now. I'm telling you, man, those get on Etsy. Those freaking stands, they look great, but they just don't freaking work worth a damn. I used to always brag about them for years. For like 3 years, I've been bragging about those freaking LJN stands, and I don't brag about them anymore because every freaking day I come downstairs, a figure is knocked off off the shelves. They're aesthetically pleasing. That's it, but they're not serviceable. Save your money. Go on Amazon. Buy these stands. You get 12 of them for like $20 or 12 of them for like $40. Those stands are... I'm not going to do that. Because I like the seller. I like the seller. I respect the seller. And that's why I don't knock on his stands as otherwise, yeah, I would be trashing them left and right. Where was I? Stuff fell off the shelf, and now I lost track of what I was talking about. I could talk about color. I could talk about play pose. I just don't know a lot about the Wild Simones as a tag team individually. I mean, I could. We all grew up watching Vince McMahon, regardless of how you knew him. If you knew him as a commentator, if you knew him as Vince McMahon as a wrestler, or as owner, whatever. Vince McMahon, whether you're 5 years old today or you're 50 years old today, Vince McMahon is someone important in your life. This still holds a lot of value. I still enjoy this figure, fused arm or not. It's a great figure overall. And one of the very few figures that has a fused arm that I could say that I actually thoroughly enjoy. Never a fan of the fused or the mirrored figures, but I don't like knock on the Wild Samoans. I think they got the great grip of the figures, and playability wise, they are solid. Good weight to the figures. Aesthetically, they're fine. They are fine figures. And are they some of the best? Out of 60 plus figures, I think they're probably in the top 20 of Ram Treasure figures. Maybe top 25. They're definitely not top 10, at least in my opinion, but I think somewhere in the top 20, top 25 are fair placement. So I would give them medium range figures at worst. Definitely something I would recommend to any buyers who are interested. But I do think Alpha made it forward to the second round, but I don't think, I think Alpha made it forward. I don't think Sika's going to move on. I am going to push Vince McMahon into round 2. It is very possible that if Sika had gone against... Actually, shoot, I don't even know. Kind of looking at who's left over, I don't even know if Sika would have beat any of the other guys in here. Next one is going to be Berserker versus... oh, man. This is probably going to be the highlight of the video. Berserker versus Young Harley Race. And we're going to start with the Young Harley Race. Now, this is a figure that, again, Mark Hackenberg. And this is one of those figures that I've been waiting to talk about almost from the get-go, alright? I did not want to wait 40 episodes to bring this figure up. I wanted to get this figure in as soon as possible. I don't know if this, even the Young Harley Race, I don't know if he wins this tournament. Pretty much a good chance he does not win the tournament. But I still thought that the Young Harley Race was going to go 4+ rounds. Because 4+ rounds puts you in elite status. And absolutely thought that this is I still believe this to be an elite figure. Incredible. Change of color scheme. Upgrade to a much younger version. And this is an immaculate figure. Mark did an amazing job. But I said when we got in the Berserker figure, when I was doing my review of the Ram Treasures Berserker, there were probably a handful of figures out there, especially from the Hasbro era, that I wanted to see as LJN. And when Ram Treasures came out with Berserker, this was one thing that they did not disappoint in. Hands down, absolutely, I felt like Berserker is one of those figures, especially from Ram Treasures, who I feel like could absolutely win this tournament. Now, if you said, hey, gun to the head, a Ram Treasures figure is going to win this tournament, which one do I choose? Absolutely, Zeus is going to shoot straight up to the top, because I still say Zeus is the bread and butter of their selection. I still say it's the greatest figure that they've ever come out with. and it's going to be really difficult for them to ever have a superior figure than that. At the end of the day, I still kind of look at the pose. I still look at it as sort of a Arn Anderson type. I mean, do I look at this and think, okay, more Warlord? Do I like it better play wise? Sure. Head mold. I mean, this is like almost 100% identical to the Hasbro sculpt, right? With that head mold, perfect. I still say that right up there with the Ultimate Warrior kind of Hogan-esque custom figure, my Bruiser Brody custom. And you know what? I'll even throw in the Steve Williams and Tully Blanchard from Rand Treasures because I really like what they did with the red and white boots as well. I'll throw those in there as well. I think those are some of my favorite figures boot wise, and what they do here with this figure is absolutely immense. It's incredible. Who was it? Darn. I don't know. I don't know if I found it myself or I think Bone Breaking Action may have said that that John Nord appeared on an episode of Judge Judy or something. I don't think it was Judge. No, it was Judge Brown, I believe. And it's funny. He had borrowed some money from a lady. I guess Alcoholics Anonymous or something, and he had borrowed some money and at his group, and he gave her like 200, I think like 210 or 205 Hasbro figures, and this woman, and it hurt my soul. She sold those 200, and instead of going online on eBay or something and actually trying to sell them and actually make a profit, she just, oh yeah, I got some bills and I wanted to sell them quickly and sold them to some friend of hers or something. And 205 Hasbro figures, great shape, and got like $350 for them. So she basically sold them for like a couple bucks a piece. I'm like, you stupid son of a... Those are probably a couple $1,000, if not more, worth of action figures that she sold for a couple $100. You dumb idiot. that cut me insides. But John Nord, I mean, he's obviously overestimated. He's like, yeah, there's probably like $5,000 worth of figure. I'm like, no. He was talking about like his own Berserker figure with robe loose was selling for like $750. I'm like, come on, guy, you're just being nuts now. But it was a fun episode to watch though. He looks so much smaller in real life. Maybe just because I was used to seeing him like on screen as a kid, but and of course when you get older, obviously, you do obviously shrink a little bit when you get up there in age, but I don't know a whole lot about Harley Race. Anytime I try to find Harley Race, all I can really find anything about him, like in matches and stuff, I see a lot of him in like WCW as manager, and I come across him a lot because he always pops up on my feed on like Facebook or whatnot, and I always see him in these little clips where he's like body slamming freaking Andre the Giant, and I'm like, Harley Race, you're like 50 years old, you cannot freaking body slam a 500-pound giant. I will chat for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whenever I do not want to make a decision. Either when I don't want to make a decision, or if I can't make a decision, because these are two absolutely phenomenal figures. Even if I'm saying, hey, I'm leaning towards Berserker, I'm not ready to say goodbye to Harley Race. This, like I said, this was an absolute premier figure. I am going with the Berserker, though. I have to. This right here is what will always keep this figure down. What Mark was able to do with this figure, I mean, you're taking basically an original Harley race, probably a 4 out of 10 figure, and you've basically turned it to a 9 out of 10, if not better, closer to 10 out of 10, even with this crappy pose. I mean, that just shows you a level of skill. But I'm not lying when I said I feel like Berserker is a legitimate contender to win this tournament. Now, any of these figures that I say could potentially win, and they could be eliminated in the first round, second round. Is it possible? Absolutely. Berserker goes up against his former teammate Bruiser Brody in the next round. He could lose. But you know what? If I say this is a legitimate contender, he could eliminate Bruiser Brody, and we could say goodbye to Brody for the first time in 3 tournaments. So, if that happens, I don't know. I think at that point, we might have ourselves a new contender for the top seed. I'm excited to see what happens. I think once we get to around round 3, once you've had an opportunity to spend a couple rounds talking about the figures, looking them over and everything, it's really going to give you a better idea of which way you're leaning. You can have an idea after the first round of which figures you really like, but even after the first 2 rounds. But it's not until you get to like round 3, round 4, when you kind of like really start forming opinions of like, man, this one's really going to be the one that's tough to beat. Next matchup is going to feature Paul Orndorff with red as he does battle against Nickel and Dime. So from Mark Hackenberg, we had 3 of the Paul Orndorff figures. Also from Mark, he also did the Nikolai Volkov Nickel and Dime figure. And Paul Orndorff, we've seen him with black, we've seen him with blue, and now we're seeing him with red. Very subtle changes compared to the Paul Orndorff original, where he's just in all red trunks with all red boots. But those subtle changes were absolutely enough for me to get all 3 figures. And like I said, it's not like they were crazy expensive. You're not looking at like $50 a figure, okay? So, and with the bundle of figures I was able to pick up, yeah, it was worth it. This right here. This is the one I was freaking wanting to talk about. And again, 40 freaking episodes. Harley Race, that young Harley Race, 40 episodes to get to. Insane. The Nickel and Dime. I remember this look. I never knew that was Nikolai Volkov. Even when I started collecting the LJNs back in late 2021, and I came across Nikolai Volkov, I didn't know Money Incorporated, $1 Million Man, this guy, and Nickel and Dime. I didn't recognize that name. I remember watching this as a kid, but I didn't remember that name or anything like that, right? When I came across this figure on Mark's, I think I bought this from him off of eBay. Probably a year or 2. I've had this for a while. I don't think it was 2023. I want to say 2022. I don't know. I've had this for like I said, I've had this for a good chunk of time. So, right off the bat, Nikolai Volkov, you guys know the deal. Very first LJN figure I ever purchased. So, Nikolai Volkov in of itself is already a very important figure in my mindset. For the longest time, my number 4 favorite figure, until I got more and more figures, and then he kind of fell off. Still a top 20 favorite LJN figure. With the new aesthetics of this look, one of the top heels of the 1980s, right there with Bundy and the Iron Sheik. Once the Cold War ended, Russia, US are now friendly. Nikolai Volkov is a good guy. Tag teaming with Jim Duggan, for example. no longer, he's now supporting the U.S. No longer the bad guy, no longer the heel. What more can he do in the World Wrestling Federation? He's not the bad guy heel that everyone's rooting against. So there's not a lot really. You can't really go tag team him back with Iron Sheik again, right? So he had a huge fall off. Left WWF, came back in, didn't have a lot of success. Kind of joined the $1 Million Corporation, where I kind of feel like a lot of people were joining the $1 Million Corporation because they were subpar characters. Like Ringmaster didn't really get a lot of love, even though, come on, Steve Austin was already established in WCW, and now he's like one of the biggest faces of WWF history. 1-2-3 Kid was still more important, I think. Kama was still great, right? So, I mean, IRS and $1 Million Man already had, multiple tag team championships. So, I think the $1 Million Corporation just did not get enough of appreciation as it deserved. I think it was a fantastic stable. But yeah, I don't even know if he even got any matches. I can't even remember. Maybe squash matches? I mean, was he ever winning any of them? Was he getting beat down? I don't remember. I know that he was being treated like crap by the $1 Million Man. Made to wear this cent sign instead of the dollar symbol, because being made fun of by the $1 Million Man. So I don't think this lasted too long. I think he was back out of WWE, out of wrestling again. So, but this is an impeccable look. And when I talk, I don't know. Again, I don't think Nikolai Volkov wins the tournament. Is he a second rounder? Of course. Is he a third rounder? Absolutely. Fourth rounder? I say so. Fifth rounder? Abso-freaking-lutely. Fifth rounders are your... If fourth rounders are your best of the best, fifth rounders absolute elite figures. Absolute elite. I would not be surprised to see this in the 6th round of the semifinals. It all depends on competition, but very possible. I really like what Mark Hackenberg does with his Paul Orndorff figures, but at the end of the day, Nikolai Volkov is a superior figure to Paul Orndorff, and one I hope to see extremely far in this tournament. If he gets eliminated in the 2nd round, again, I will be heartbroken. I want to see this one go extremely far. So, Nickel and Dime, first appearance here in the 40th episode. Now, the last matchup we're going to feature from Round Treasures, their prototype of Tito Santana. This was technically the last figure of the tournament, of the first round. Now, I could have done a 3-man matchup to close out this last matchup. Pushed 2 figures forward automatically. And I still think that Tito would have joined Nickel and Dime to move forward past Paul Orndorff if I decided to push 2 figures forward. Or Tito could have been eliminated, and Nikolai could have moved down, and Paul Orndorff and Tito Santana could have been eliminated. I've said that when LJN decided to scrap this figure and kind of give you that horrible arms straight out figure that they gave you in Series 3. Why? Because in Series 4, they came out with Bret Hart, which basically had the exact same pose, or very close to it. So why would they use this for Bret Hart, but not the original Tito, which was the original design? At least this was a superior look than what you got with the original Tito. So, and of course, Ram Chargers did give you a much improved face, I think. A much improved body. I enjoy this figure a whole lot more. Much improved figure overall. Now, I decided I did not want to do a 3-man matchup. Well, what could I use to put him in? I don't want to just do automatic move on to round 2. No, he has to have some kind of competition, right? Well, I looked at some of the figures that I painted myself, and I thought maybe some of those figures, but they're really freaking bad. They're terrible. I'm looking at this figure that's in my hand, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should have used those figures because they might actually be better than what this crap is. But it's not my work, so I am not as embarrassed to show this one off as I would be those figures that I painted myself. So this figure was not going to be included because it's... Why would I include this? But Tito Santana is going to go up against Sherry Martel. Now, when I bought this figure, this was not the main figure. It was Macho Man. It was a Macho Man figure with the Elizabeth custom to look like Sherry Martel. And it wasn't as bad as it looks now. Like right now when you look at it, the black on here is like completely coming off, where you can see the purple undertone on the I don't know what that is, the what is it, the bustier, whatever, on the boots and stuff. But yeah, it's really poorly made. I actually wanted to sell this a long time ago, but I'm like, again, what am I gonna do with this? If I put this on auction for like 99 cents, like literally, I think if I put it on auction for like 99 cents with like a $5 shipping, I think last second somebody's gonna come in with like a $1 offer or $1 bid, and that's what it's gonna sell for. And I'm not, even though it's crap, I'm not gonna sell this for $1. And somebody who with customization skills, they will come in and they will be able to salvage this. But this was just a throw-in figure. The Macho Man figure is what I was bidding on, and that's what I cared about. But when I saw this, I'm like, nah. And did I pay a lot for the Macho Man with Queen Sherry, Sensational Sherry, Scary Sherry? I don't know what the hell her damn name is, but whatever. No, I didn't. Yeah, I needed some kind of competition, but this isn't it. Tito Santana, absolute no-brainer. He is going to move forward to round 2. Does he move on past round 2? Like I said, I like this one better than the others. Is it a huge, immense improvement over the original? Not ginormous, but it is enough of an improvement where I can look at it and actually be satisfied with it. Is it something that's going to win this tournament? It's not, but I still feel like it's more than just a one-and-done type figure. It might even be more than a second-round figure. Third round? Is it more than a third round? Probably not. But based on competition, could it make it to round 4? Sure. We'll see what happens. But Tito Santana, he will move on to round 2. And with that, we come to the conclusion of round 1 of the My Favorite LJN tournament. This was exhausting. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this tournament. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to keep going and continue on with round 2 immediately, or if I'm going to take a break. But if you do see another video out in the next day or two, with round 2 that'll answer that question. But if you don't see anything posted in like 3 days, 4 days, then that means I'm probably going to take about a week off or something from making these type of videos, and I'm probably going to be making other videos. But I did say I wanted to get this tournament done as quickly as possible, because I wanted to complete the tournament before the end of the year. So I'm gonna have to suck it up. Again, it depends on what's going on, what other type of videos I want to make. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.